With this loss to the Texans, the Colts offense has become an absolute disaster that Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen have got to figure out. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first post-game listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. The show is also brought to you by Pain and Suffering. What's up, everybody? This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of HorseshoeHuddle.com. I'm your resident media member for the site, and Zach is your resident film member from the site. And we're talking about this 23-20 loss. It's a division midweek or mid-year loss, 3-point loss. Honestly, the Colts covered the spread in this one. So on the surface, it doesn't look that bad, but is there any single one of you who has a good, warm, fuzzy feeling after this one? So we got to start talking about the problems right off the bat with Anthony Richardson, Zach. So obviously this is kind of becoming a broken record each week. You know, we talk about the peaks and valleys and this and that, and the good days are coming. They haven't come. Every week seems like a new low. We were kind of joking before we went on the air, like his stat line from today, it looks like when you absolutely whoop your little brother in Madden. Like they can do absolutely nothing. Like this is video game numbers, but in the wrong way. And box score scouting with a player like Anthony Richardson is incredibly misleading. I saw a tweet by one of the Houston media members talking about his first quarter, and I was like, oh no, he's actually kind of dealing in the first quarter. The numbers are just terrible because of drops and just like tiny, being inches off. But then extrapolating over the entire game, it just went downhill from there. 10 of 32, which is 31.3% completion percentage, which might be the lowest I've ever seen in my life. 175 yards with a 5.5 YPA. Remember, there was a 69-yard touchdown involved in that. 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 5 sacks. So there was some really good ball harassment by Houston's defensive backs, and the Colts offensive line didn't really do him many favors either, and there were a couple drops. So, it wasn't 100% on Anthony, but here we are. It's a new low, Zach.
Yeah, it is. And I've been very vocal about the patience needed when it comes to Anthony Richardson. I've been very vocal since they drafted him about how there's a lot of patience needed in this project because the Colts are taking a shot at a crazy experiment with Anthony Richardson, betting on the traits, betting on the upside, betting on the talent, when there's really nothing off of his college film in terms of what he produced in college that says he should have been a top 5 pick. And this was going to be a process that took a long time. But while I am still preaching patience, and I still think he needs to be the starter the rest of the season because it's more valuable to get those data points on him than it is to get anything that Joe Flacco would give you. Like Joe Flacco, again, at best gets you a wild card loss, where Richardson, it's more valuable to get those data points. But we are at the point where 4 of his last 5 starts and the 4 starts that he finished the game had been very bad starts. And we can point to Shane Steichen's issues. We can point to wide receivers' issues. Today, we could point at the offensive line's issues. Like they are not excluded from this conversation. But at the end of the day, the quarterback position needs to get it right. And the quarterback position is the one that takes the blame and takes the credit when things go right or go wrong. That's literally what this NFL is built around. It's built around the quarterback position. So despite having some drops, I mean, all quarterbacks deal with drops. I know Richardson's had his fair share this year, despite dealing with a lot of pressure. A lot of quarterbacks go through a lot of pressure. And despite dealing with poor play calling at times, a lot of quarterbacks have bad play callers and bad moments, but they figure it out. If they are right for this league, they figure it out. And I'm not saying Anthony Richardson needs to be some star quarterback right now, but there needs to be some foundation of just functionality in this offense. And again, Steichen's part of this too, but There is no functionality in this offense right now. They are bad on third downs. I mean, I guess the broadcast was obsessed with telling how good they were on 3rd and 15 plus or 3rd and 10 plus this year. But again, they're in those situations way too much.
Right. Don't
That's why
give yourself that long.
yeah, they're getting a lot of
Should be there.
reps, I guess. Maybe that's why they're so good in 3rd 10 plus. But they're bad on third down. They're bad on early downs. They're bad until the fourth quarter in a lot of ways for the most part. And a lot of that is your quarterback. And like, look, I'm a longtime proponent of I don't care about completion percentage. If a quarterback is, if a quarterback like Richardson is completing 55 to 60% of his passes, that's fine because he adds so much with his rushing threat and his sack negation and all these things. I don't care if he's not a 70% passer. But we're not talking about a 60% passer right now. We're not talking about a 55% passer. We're barely talking about a 50% passer right now. That is not functional for an offense. There are too many negative plays, too many just plays that are not going anywhere, and the offense is behind the sticks and behind the margins too often. And yeah, receivers can be better. Quarterback can be better as well. Like it's everything right now. But at the end of the day, when it comes to this Anthony Richardson project, and when we're looking at year 2, we're not seeing a lot of good. Like we are seeing a couple of flashes here and there, which have been fine, but it's been sort of this kind of regression for him. It's either the passes are sailing high and he's missing passes, or he's taking too long to go through his reads, or he's making bonehead decisions. Like there were multiple decisions in this game that should not have been made. The interception before the half shouldn't have happened. Another fumbled snap that happened and took them out of field goal range at the beginning of the second half. Not running out of bounds on that final drive. I know that was a very low chance of winning the game regardless at that point, but wasted 15 seconds just so he could lower his shoulder and run in bounds on that final drive. Like it's things like this, man, where we're seeing too much negative from him and not much positive. And it's been this way for a little over a month now with Anthony Richardson. So I'm not saying I'm out on Richardson. I'm not saying bench him. Like absolutely not. Get the data points on this kid. But if we get to week 18, and every start up until week 18 is looking like this, without the couple positive outliers in there that you can really hang your hat on, I don't know how you give him year 3. It's difficult, man. Like because this is not a functioning offense with him, and there are some things that the coach can do to make it a functioning offense with him. Lean on the run game, lean on the QB run game, get something in the short game going with him. It's not just Richardson, but again, at the end of the day, it's not functioning right now. It's not working. And they're lucky enough to be a competitive team in some of these games. I mean, this game against Houston was a prime opportunity to win, and the quarterback play wasn't good enough. Again, other positions weren't good enough either, but the quarterback play was not good enough. So, yeah, man, it's frustrating. And my bar is so low for Anthony Richardson right now. It's kind of what I said earlier in the season with the defense, where it's like the bar is so low, just don't be dreadful and everything. It's kind of the same with Richardson. Just give me a game or two to hang my hat on. Give me something where you go out there, complete 60% of your passes for 200 yards, run for another 30 or 40, and the Colts get a win. I can hang my hat on that and be happy giving you year 3 because I'm like, look, he showed me he can do it in this game. But as of right now, he's not showing me that he can put it together for 4 quarters and give me an efficient and effective football game. And we're not like, again, we're like 10 starts into this thing, 11 starts into this thing, but we're in year 2. Like he's been in an NFL program for a year and a half now. Like I know we can say he's a rookie in terms of starts, but there is some point where you have to, you can't keep lying to yourself saying he's not been around. Like if he gets hurt again and misses time and then starts week 1 next year, you're not going to say he's a rookie still because he's under the 17 starts. At some point this process needs to be hurried up a little bit. And I'm not saying he needs to be there right now. I'm just saying, get me to like a baseline where I can hang my hat on something. And that's all I'm asking for right now. And we just haven't seen it this year in year 2. Year 2 in a lot of ways has been a big regression from year 1. And that's not what you want to see for a process where you're saying, hey, this is a process, get him snaps, get him snaps with Steichen, and hopefully you can see this growth. I mean, progress isn't linear, but like there needs to be some semblance of moving up. It can't be progressing downwards. So hopefully he can come out of this funk. You give him all the snaps that you hope for, and again, hope that he can turn this around. But as of right now, again, 4 of his last 5 starts, the 4 games that he's finished, have been very negative performances in games where it's like, this is not functionable NFL quarterback play. And it needs to be better than this. Like the baseline needs to be better than this. And that's all I'm asking. Just give me a good baseline and I'll be back in, baby. And I'm not even out on him right now. It's just my concern level. If we go back to like week 2 or week 3 of this season, even my concern level is like at a 2 or 3. My concern level right now is probably like a 5 or 6. Like there is some concern here. And I understand anyone who's out on him because he's not really showing it right now. So that's my long monologue here. And I'm taking away the podcast from Jake and not letting him talk right now because I need to do my monologue. But I am very concerned. As one of the most Anthony Richardson truthers and pro Anthony Richardson draft picks and the pro give him patience and time people out there, I am a bit concerned because we have a guy who struggled to stay on the field and a guy who struggled to produce when he's been on the field. And we're now a year and a half into this thing. Like, the progress needs to be a little further than what it is right now. And I think it's okay to expect that. Like, we can still be patient, but still want progress to be a little bit better than what it is right now. And I think for this Colts team to get where it needs to go, he needs to be at least, again, the baseline, at least needs to be better than what it is right now. I don't need him to be superstar. I don't even need him to be average right now. But, like, at least give me below average quarterback play right now. Because right now we're getting dreadful quarterback play. And it just needs to be better than this.
Yeah, without a doubt. And honestly, say your piece because you're speaking for a lot of different people right now. But we're actually going to roll this into segment 2 as well because there's still more to say about, Anthony. Because, like, honestly, for a lot of people, the low moment of the game lasted one play. Yeah. And then we got to talk about the play calling as well. And then, a few other things that did stick out on the offense. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals who are right for the role. And that's why I got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board either, because they actually help you hire professionals who you can't find anywhere else, even if they aren't really searching for, activity in other areas, but might be open to an opportunity that you present them. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, then you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a quality candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonNFL. That's linkedin.com/lockedonNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You can just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, which includes California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is also the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So that means your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If they leave in the first half and don't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to receive the win to receive that $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Zach. So I'll wrap up my Richardson stuff here. So there was a play later in the game where Richardson had run it a few times, and he made this big-time miraculous play where he flung off the nose tackle and ran up 1,000,000 yards up to the line of scrimmage, and it still wound up as sack. But he got back to the line of scrimmage instead of it being a huge loss. And they're in the mid-red zone now. And then Richardson calls himself out of the game. And everyone's like, oh, God, here we go again. Is he hurt? What's happening? And then as it comes out later, he was just tired. He said so after the game. Shane Steichen said so after the game. So Joe Flacco comes in for a play, and they run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. And it's like there's been times this year, like when he's been hurt, and I feel like they've really coddled him. Like, he is a big-time competitor and wants to be in there, but they have put him in bubble wrap and just not let the kid play or face much physical adversity if he shows any signs of being injured or anything. And in this one, he's the quarterback, but takes himself out for a play because he's tired. And then they just run the ball next play. They weren't going to have him run it again or need him to, like, make some really dialed-in pass. Like, he was tired. And, like, Pat McAfee, who's the biggest homer in the world, like, literally he's at every home game. He bangs the anvil. Like, there is no bigger Colts fan on earth than Pat McAfee. He even tweeted right after that, like, I've never seen a quarterback do this. The message this sends is just, so on and so forth, basically saying like, this is a terrible look. And I couldn't agree more. Like, Richardson's not the first quarterback who runs a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're a quarterback, I don't even know how that's an option to you. Like, you're scraping my dead body off the field if I'm a quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've just never seen that before. And I don't love, again, the message that sends to the rest of the guys. You don't think other guys out there are exhausted? Like, offensive players aren't often exhausted that much. That's why defensive players get subbed in and out so much.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone from the Colts organization is going to throw anyone under the bus, because this group doesn't tend to do that. But man, I did not think that was a good look whatsoever. You just don't see that. No other quarterbacks do that.
You just got to get better at lying, man. Like, send some trainers over to him, say the wind got knocked out, and then this is fine. This is nothing. But no, like, to get to your point, yeah, it is kind of ridiculous. And I'm not someone who calls out players for being soft or stuff. Like, I don't, at the end of the day, I really don't care about this too much. But it is, again, like you said, it's bad optically when you have other guys in the field. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's taking 20-something hits a game running the ball. Alec Pierce is running 30 miles a play. This guy is running to the end zone and back on every single play. Quentin Nelson is in the trenches every play. Like, these guys are tired too. And they could get out there for that little lame handoff on 3rd and 25 too. Like, Richardson can at least take a snap and hand the ball off. So yeah, just optically, like, everything about this game is just a really bad look for Richardson. And honestly, again, for someone like me, who's always been pro Richardson and pro the development process and pro where he can be one day, I don't have any response for the negative outcry after this game, because I get it, man. I get it. It's one of those games from him and from everything else, like, right now. But before we get out of this segment talking offense, though, Jake, I know we've talked a lot about Richardson in this one. There's still a lot of issues around Richardson. I mean, Shane Steichen as a play caller has just not figured out Anthony Richardson whatsoever. And to a lot of the detractors' points who are going to yell in the comments right now, like, it's hard to scheme around a quarterback that inaccurate. It is. It very much is. But Anthony Richardson's a weapon in the run game, and we see the impact he brings in the run game. We see them when they do call QB runs and design QB runs. The Colts rushing attack is really good. So when they come out in these games where it's like the first quarter was really good from the Colts today. 10 points in the first quarter, had the huge touchdown pass. And then I believe on the broadcast, it was like their last 9 plays went for like -8 yards or something. And I believe 8 of those were pass plays. And it's like, why are we throwing the ball so much? You have Jonathan Taylor. You have Anthony Richardson's ability in the run game. This should be like a 60 to 65% rush offense. Like, this should be a run-dominant offense, especially in today's football when linebackers are the smallest they've ever been, where too high safety looks is such a big thing. And if you want to build your explosives off of the rush offense, you can do that, but run the ball more. Run the ball more confidently and more aggressively. Jonathan Taylor had a great game running the ball. Richardson, when he ran the ball, was really good in this game. Like, let's lean into the run game. Right. If Richardson gets hurt running the ball, so be it. He cannot be an effective quarterback right now without the QB run game. So if he gets hurt, so be it. Like, that is part of who he is as a player and part of what can make him good. So you have to lean into that, man. Like, especially early in the games. Like, if you want to throw the ball late, fine. But like, lean into the QB run game early, get him some hits on him and get him into the action of the game so his natural instincts come out. Because I guess in the fourth quarter, his instincts come out and he plays better football in the fourth quarter of these games. So yeah, get the run game going early in these games, man. Get the QB run game going. Like, I don't care if you have to go run pass early, like the dreaded run pass. Like, lean into it, man, because the running game was the only thing working in this one. The receivers, aside from Josh Downs, were not good enough. The tight ends were not good enough in the passing game. The offensive line and pass protection was just getting abused. Bernhard Raimann had his worst start, I think, since his rookie season, where the Colts, he was getting abused by Hunter and Will Anderson. So yeah, this was a game where it's like, lean on that rushing attack with Richardson at the helm, with Jonathan Taylor running the ball. Like, you see the impact that Richardson's presence has on the run game. Lean into that, man. Like, lean into it. And you see just far too often in these last couple games where it's like been so pass heavy in the first quarters and first and second quarter. And it's like, that's not a winning formula right now with this team. They got to run the ball, and they got to run the ball with Richardson and with Taylor. So hopefully they can eventually get to that point. But again, we're like a month now of seeing this where they don't use the running game to set up the passing game. They set up the passing game to do the run game later, but then they get into big enough deficits where they can't run the ball late in the game. So it's like it's all a moot point. But yeah, they got to lean into this run game a little bit more. It's really good with Jonathan Taylor. It's good with this offensive line. And honestly, Richardson's a really good rushing threat at quarterback, even with him not protecting himself as much as you would like. Like, it is a good rushing attack and great potential for rushing. Like, they got to lean into that because you can't just make him a drop back passer on every single play. That's just not effective football. And you're getting yourself in these horrible deficits by doing that. So it's on Shane Steichen. It's on the offensive staff. Like, lean into this. Lean into this. He can run. Like, if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. Whatever. It happens. Lean into the running game. Lean into the running game. Fully lean into it to set up your explosive passes that you want to do. And maybe you'll be able to find some semblance of consistency early in these football games.
Yeah, if you would have told me that that Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson would have combined for 150 yards on the ground, you get Jonathan Taylor back, you get DeForest Buckner back, Jonathan goes over 100, and the defensive front performs as well as it does against C.J. Stroud. There's no Nico Collins for the Texans. I'd be like, yeah, they probably won that game then. They didn't. I mean, you look at the rest of this offense, 2 of 13 on third down, a lot of third and longs and everything, which forced them into fourth down, which they actually are good at. They were 2 of 2 on fourth down. But it's just like 6 offensive penalties. I think there was 3 false starts on Quentin. What are we doing there? Like, to get you back to your all-pro performance, does it mean we have to have so many penalties? Like, that sucks, but that's kind of that. He's doing his job as a performer, so like that can't be too much of a gripe. But that type of stuff puts you in those terrible situations on third down. And like, that's awesome that they're so good at third and a million, but like, don't put yourself in that position. So there's just a lot to point at. Like, there were drops. Again, I thought Houston's secondary did a good job at playing aggressive, but there were drops. The contested catches were not made. They let Houston pretty much have all those. This is a game where Michael Pittman caught 1 pass. Alec Pierce caught 1 pass. A.D. Mitchell 1. I think things are getting really, really, really close with A.D. Mitchell. Like, I think that's on the verge of becoming a thing. Jonathan Taylor on the not first play of the game, but really early on, it might have been the first play, but that nice 12-yard screen pass, and then nothing again. It worked very well, so of course, let's abandon it. The tight ends don't exist. Kylan Granson, who can't buy a reception in the last several weeks, 1 reception for 4 yards. Like, I don't know what to make of this offense right now. There's way more wrong with it than what's right, and that's so crazy given the players they have available to them.
Yeah, and this isn't even just a Richardson thing either. This offense has had no identity this entire season. I mean, even when Flacco was out there, the only way they were scoring points was they were dreadful on first and second down, and then Flacco was bailing them out with some godly third down play that was just not going to be sustainable. Like, they have no identity whatsoever on offense. They have splashes of good plays, but they have nothing to hang their hat on whatsoever on offense. And they need to figure that stuff out. This is a family show. I had to say stuff out. They have to figure their stuff out before the end of the season, or you're going to be sitting at 7, 8, and 9 and wondering what could have been this year. So, yeah, they have a lot to figure out on offense. I feel better about the Gus Bradley-led defense right now than I do about this Colts offense.
Let's talk about that defense, man, here in a moment. All right, the weather's getting colder. We're into fall, and this is Indiana, so that means basketball time is heating up. And thank God, let's go Pacers. Let's see what you guys can do. But game time, whether it's basketball or anything else, they should be your hookup for all your ticketing needs. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff and all the unkind things that it takes to actually find tickets, all the things that drive you crazy, so that you don't have to spend a ton of time searching through thousands of options. They've got your views from the seat, so you can get a panoramic view from your seat beforehand so that you can see if it's even a good one or not before you actually spend all that money on it. They've got the lowest price guarantee, which means they'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find a a cheaper price for a comparable seat on another ticketing app, I think that's huge because it just goes to show you they're that confident that they've got the best deals around. And then for me, one of the best things is the game time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. If you're a parent, if your life is chaotic and things come up all the time, I think that is incredibly valuable to take when you buy tickets to really anything. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
All right, so let's talk defense, Zach. So starting up front, CJ Stroud was only sacked twice, which is like whatever, but he was hit 9 times. He was under duress, I thought, throughout the game. He made a bunch of just CJ Stroud-esque plays, which cannot be defended. He's the type of guy you have him wrapped up. He somehow gets rid of the ball, and there's a receiver there with nobody around him. Like, he does that 5 times a game. You can't really do anything about that. But I thought the defensive front did a great job. Again, DeForest Buckner was back for the first time since week 2. Of course, he had to have a sack. I think on the broadcast they said in 11 games against Houston, he has like 11 and 11 and a half sacks, something like that. So he definitely loves playing them. Dio played out of his mind. There for a minute, I thought that it was going to be a legit scoop and score. Yeah. From a certain angle, I didn't think he was really – I thought he didn't have possession yet by the time he was touched. But, of course, we almost had an absolute play of the day for our guy Ken in there. But, no, really, I liked the performance from pretty much everybody up front. Grover did well. Quiddy did well. Latu did well. Just a lot of, kudos to go around for the defensive front. I can't really say a ton of awesome things about the linebackers necessarily. But in general, I thought the defense itself played more than good enough to win this game.
I would argue this is one of Gus Bradley's best called games in his Indianapolis tenure. There was a very clear advantage that the Colts and pretty much every team has on the Houston Texans right now, which is blitz them heavy and attack them with stunts and twists because this offensive line is really struggling. And honestly, we saw today, like CJ Stroud, he made a couple of big time plays in this game, but he was not on point this entire game. Like, he had a lot of misses, especially a couple misses on third downs in this game where there were open receivers and he was sailing passes and missing them short. Like, this was not a great game from CJ Stroud. It was a fine game, but it wasn't a great game from CJ Stroud on the other side of the field, especially in that first half. And I think a lot of that had to do with how the Colts attacked him and how they attacked this offense. They stuffed the box on early downs and did what they could against the run. I mean, the tackling could have been better, and I'll talk about kind of the issue with that too. But I think just from a schematic standpoint, what Gus Bradley was doing with his blitz calls, what he was doing with his simmed pressure, what he was doing with his just the way that he attacked this Texans offensive line, I think it was a great game plan. Like, he did the best he could, and he got the best out of the defensive line. The defensive line had their best game of the season. Dio Dangbo, DeForest Buckner, Quiddy Pay had a handful of pressures in this game. It was a really strong game from the defensive line, and it looked like the defensive line we projected all offseason and what we expected out of this defensive line all offseason. And I thought the cornerback play was really good too. The issue with this defense and the issue where it comes into is the linebacker play is simply not good enough, and it's not going to be good enough this season. I'm kind of out on just the linebacker play in general this season. Our greatest story ever last week, Grant Stewart, had a really rough day out there, and I know he was forced into the lineup because of the injury to Jalen Carlisle, but it kind of showed why Stewart was a special teamer. He was missing tackles. He couldn't do anything in coverage, and there were some issues. I mean, the Texans did a good job throwing the ball a lot on early downs so they could target wherever Grant Stewart was supposed to be in coverage. It was a really smart game plan from Bobby Slowick in that regard. And then, the safeties were missing some tackles and missing some coverage opportunities. And really, if you look at where a lot of these completions were coming, I mean, I know there was a couple on Sam Womack, and it was probably his worst game of the year. I mean, the other games were fantastic, so obviously this was going to be the worst game by far for him. But there were a couple completions on Womack, but really, if you look at where this pass defense is struggling, it's with the linebackers in zone, with the safeties in zone, in that middle of the field. And it's hard as a defensive play caller to really account for that because they just don't have a single player on the roster at those positions who can play zone coverage well in those spots. So there are this defense is very flawed and very limited. But if they get what they got today, which is a good defensive scheme and good play calling from the defense coordinator, top tier defensive line play for the most part. I mean, again, it could have been a little bit better on the rundowns, but fantastic at getting after the quarterback and did a lot of really cool things with sim pressures and blitzes. And then good play from their cornerback room. This defense can be feisty and be competitive with everyone despite their limitations. So really, this defense did their job today. I have no issues with the defense. Dio Dangbo was a man on a mission in this game. Jalen Jones was fantastic in this game. DeForest Buckner, I mean, the man that we missed so much this season. You could see his impact. Kwity Paye and Latu had their impact in this game. Like, I really think this defense played so well to get a win. Like they did, and they stole that turnover late. That gave the Colts a chance to go get a win, and then the Colts offense and their offensive line just blew it right afterwards. But no issues for Gus Bradley in this one. No issues for the defensive line. Cornerback room, not their best day, but still a pretty good day from the cornerback room. Like defense, good job, man. You guys did enough to win this game, even with the linebackers, I think, still being an issue. The overall defense did all you could ask for to get the win. And it's unfortunate that they didn't get this win because, I mean, if you take away, like they had the touchdown right before half because it was a really, really short field, this defense essentially gave up, 16 points to C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. This super offense that everyone was talking about before the season, they gave up 16 points and looked really good doing so. Like, I'm really impressed with this defense in this game. They are feisty. They're competitive. They're not perfect. And they're not going to be perfect, but this is what I kind of expected from this defense coming to the year, and they really showed out in this game. And again, it's unfortunate they couldn't get the win because they really deserved to get it with how they played in this one.
Yeah, so they do get another shot at Minnesota. A lot of these guys were around a couple years ago during that huge collapse. I feel so much better about it. Oddly enough, I feel better about the defense going into this one against Minnesota. You know, very unfortunate injury for Christian Darrisaw, but, you know, with DeForest Buckner back, this defensive line playing like it does, you know what I mean? Like this is not a game against Minnesota we felt good about at all, but I'm way more optimistic about the defense moving forward into a really rough 4-game stretch that they've got going on now.
Yeah, the defense has an identity. The defense identity has they have an identity and they have a plan. They're competitive. They're not perfect. They can get punched in the mouth at times, but for the most part, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to hit you. They're going to punch the ball out every now and then. And they have good corner play and good defensive line play, especially with DeForest Buckner back. Like there is some semblance of an identity on the defense. There's no identity on offense at all. And I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon because again, as someone who is and was a very optimistic Anthony Richardson person, I don't have a reason to be optimistic right now with this season because there's just no identity with him starting a quarterback. There was barely an identity with Joe Flacco starting either. I'm not saying that like it's all Richardson, but like this offense is in a bad place right now, and I feel better about the defense going forward. I feel better about the Gus Bradley unit than the Shane Steichen unit going forward, and that says a lot about where we are this season. But again, let's look at the bright side. They are a 4-4 team. We're talking like the sky is falling, but this is still a 4-4 football team that still has a chance to do some things this year, despite all the negatives that we've seen. So we'll see. 8 straight games that are 1-score games for this Colts team. They play 3 of the best teams in football coming up. So we'll see if they can keep their 1-score streak against the best teams in the league. I mean, Detroit won by like 60 today, so we'll see if they can if they can keep that against Detroit coming up. But we do want to thank you guys.
That might be one where we all just decide to have a good time and not hope for anything optimistic going into
I might take that.
Which of course it means they'll steal that win. That'll be 2022 when they beat the Chiefs and had zero reason to do so. That's the weird one the Colts get this year.
Oh man, Jelani Woods coming out the tunnel like Bill Murray in Space Jam just to come catch the game-winning touchdown at the end. That's what it'll be right there. But we do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first post-game listen today. Now, if you're a second listen, go find the new Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, Follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur, at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. See Jake do some TikTok dances. It's a really fun time over there. And also subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews. It will catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.